Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. My name's Brian Doyle, and with me, as always, are my two favorite co-hosts, mostly because I don't have any other ones.
Yeah.
Robb and Tim. Robb Rogers and Tim McNeil. So, I like to stir the pot to bat these roundtables off as opposed to when we're being nice with guests on. No, all kidding aside, guys, how you doing today?
Doing good.
Well.
Doing good.
Well, super busy.
Good, man. And, I think you're sensing it too. Life is starting to resume to normal. We're out there. We all got to do our jobs again. We all got to get on planes again. The world is getting back to the place it once was.
100% It's my first concert in a year and a half. Pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
So you went already, or you're going to?
No,
beautiful.
Yeah.
And was this
the lead singer of Fish? Saw him at Saratoga. It's back.
Wow. It's back. Very nice.
Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool. Just I didn't even care who was playing. I just wanted to be in the
get out there.
With other people.
I was gonna say, Tim, I didn't have you pegged for the jam band kind of guy.
Yeah, I spread the gamut. I go all beautiful. Over the place.
Awesome. Well, yeah, those are the nice things, right? Getting back to life, getting back out with people, getting back out to shows.
Yeah.
And sporting events and whatever you're a fan of, right? But as much as I'd love to just talk about sports and music today, that would be a phenomenal half hour. But I think today we got to take it back to what we do. And one of the things that the three of us have really been talking about is, the conversations we're having with the MSPs we serve around security and selling security.
Yes.
Nothing's a hotter topic in the industry. I think we'd all agree with that. We see the influx of MSPs trying to put that second S in their classification as well, whether they're spinning them off as new arms or buying out outsourced to go do the job. Mm-hmm. Everybody's definitely looking at security as part of their portfolio. So, I'd love to kick this one off, guys, since you're on the front lines dealing with the salespeople. What are you seeing driving the security sales today, and how are you seeing those salespeople going and out and attacking the market here?
Well, I think it's been, since COVID hit, obviously everybody knows security threats or cybersecurity has gone through the roof, right? Attacks, phishing, you name it. I think what we've seen over the last 15 months is just this evolution of, in the beginning, I think people were a lot of salespeople are, first off, they're scared to talk about it because they don't fully understand it. And we've talked about on the show plenty of times and you said it a minute ago, just because somebody puts another S in an MSP doesn't mean that they actually know security.
Yeah.
So for the companies who are getting serious into the security game, it's really making sure that they teach their people why it's so important that they're getting into it. And the front lines for that is the salespeople, right?
Right.
I think we've seen a lot of, not a lot, we've talked to enough people where there's been some confusion, just frankly, with the salespeople on what to say, how to overcome objections, what it really means, and why it's so important. So I think that is changing a little bit. People are starting to become a little bit more educated on it. They're starting to have better conversations and starting to really explain why it's so important right now, with people starting to go back to the office.
How about you, Rob? What are your thoughts?
So, what I'm seeing with, my reps is there is, like Timmy said, it is definitely a very hot topic on the MSP side, but on the prospect side, the market is being driven right now by incident response. They're thinking it's not going to happen to me until it happens to me, and then they go and they start getting all the coverage, and they have to do the fire department, right, instead of doing the smoke detector. So the gap right now in knowledge on a salesperson to teach what they have to teach and do proactive coverage versus an incident response, that value add right there is where we're having a real struggle with getting these prospects to understand that now's the time. And it's amazing, the colonial pipelines, all these big things. Everybody immediately says it's a big company. Nobody's coming after the little guy. And that knowledge, teaching that the little guy is just as important and just as dangerous, is tough. It's tough right now.
Yeah,
well, I think when you look at the hackers too, what they're seeing is, okay, we took Colonial Pipeline, but that money's being pulled back, right? Like there's actually a recoup mechanism. If you go in and hit, your local town's, I don't know, leading law office or something like that with ransomware, you're going to see that the government's not going to help support clawing that money back the same way too. So these hackers are always looking for where the reward is. And yes, it might mean a little bit more effort, because obviously it's nice to, just like selling, right? If we can hack one environment and get 5 million, that's better than hacking 20 environments at $500,000 a piece. But if you're not going to get to keep the money, all of a sudden 20 environments doesn't look too bad, right? So that's what I think we're going to see a little bit of as well.
Well, and I think one thing that makes an MSP so vulnerable is the fact that they do get a large MSP. They have 75, 80, 90 clients. Right? If somebody attacks the MSP, which then infects all of the clients, to your point, it can be a target, and it can be kind of attractive.
Well, you're spot on, Tim. If you're an MSP today, and there's the old adage, right? We joke about it internally in the industry sometimes that while we do wonderful for our customers, our own infrastructure suffers because shoemaker working on his own shoes concept.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly, right. But the reality is we have to do these things around security now because we're actually the target. That person, those hackers know if we infect the MSP, we might have 100 customers there. Matter of fact, a couple episodes ago, we had Gary Jones on from VCPI talking about that. That was something that really hit his environment. And, it took them time to overcome the reputation hit and the customer confidence in restoring that. They brought the systems back to life, but the event still happened, right? And none of us want to see that.
I think, for going back to the salesperson, because ultimately it's the salesperson's job to deliver the value proposition for the customer, the prospect, to understand that this is a really big deal. And I'm not just being sold something that, they want to sell me. And so that's where I think the market is having a really hard time getting the prospects to bite into a proactive model versus, well, when it breaks, then I'll deal with it. And so, like, Brian, what do you say to that? Like, how do you train these guys in a thing that they're so timid and afraid of?
Well, I'm going to answer this in two parts, right? Because there's two problems I fundamentally see in front of us, right? One, all of our MSPs are going out, and you hear the story about them tightening up their security stack and selecting what their security stack's going to be. But again, they're thinking about it almost with a VAR-centric type viewpoint on it. I just need to get these tools. These tools are going to be the panacea that helps strengthen security. But what's missing behind it is the sales training and the real support to help that sales rep who might have been just selling refreshes of PCs a week ago in an operational MSP contract, how this is going to protect those borders and really deliver it. And what does it mean to the customer? And what do these tools really do? Because I got to tell you, some of this EDR, MDR kind of stuff is even getting a little tough for me to conceptualize as a guy that I think understands it a little bit, and really understanding how this is going to prevent that cyber attack or help in reversing the outcomes on those things faster, right? So, there's some level of knowledge transfer that has to be there in a layman's type term to our sales rep so they can communicate and have that with the customer. The other thing is I see is really that these customers are selling towards fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So to what you were saying earlier, Rob, they're talking a little bit about when the incident happens and the incident response. First, most MSPs are not even prepared for incident response. But let's put that to the side for today. And let's really talk about from the customer's point of view. The conversation is, hey, Tim, man, you got to buy this firewall upgrade because this is going to better secure your environment, and X, Y, and Z in this UTM package is going to really help enhance that some of these things don't make it through your firewall. And it's going to cost you $4,000, which, geez, Tim, I don't know if I want to do that, and it just seems like that's only a moderate level of bit of impact. Well, if it doesn't happen, this could happen. Well, customers are never really good about fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? There's plenty of memes. We've all seen them, customers budget before before an incident, and you see 3 pennies in a piggy bank. Customers budget after an incident, and now there's $50 bills flowing out the top, right? So the reality is, it's what we're not doing, and what we have to be better at as salespeople is not talking about the problem, not talking about the cure, but talking about the starting point, which is really, hey, Mr. Customer, what is your tolerance for risk? Think about yourself in your personal life, right? When you're making decisions on anything, you're going to look at the risk versus reward concept on it. Hey, if I don't get my gutters cleaned this year and I try to go one more year, what's the risk that I have on the table? Well, one of the gutters might fall. Yeah, that's not a big project to put it back up. So maybe I'll push out me getting up the ladder one more year, right?
Yeah.
And we make those kind of assessments every day at home. We need to talk to our customers about the same thing at their offices. Hey, Mr. Customer, how would you rank your risk tolerance on a scale of 1 to 5? 5 being absolutely intolerant to risk. Well, if your customer says we need to be at a 5, we have confidential information and we can't let it get out there, and our IP is so valuable to us, then a week later you put a security project in front of them and they say, "Oh, Tim, I don't want to spend that money, buddy. That seems a little excessive." Then there's a natural conversation that can occur then without poking the customer in the eye and without going down the rabbit hole of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Salespeople got to start thinking like business people and say, that's cool. Tim, I can understand your reluctance to do it today, or maybe it's just not in the budget, right? Because that could be a reality too, because we're asking for dollars that might not yet be allocated to a customer. But let me say this then, Tim, we got to look at your risk, your risk rating, and probably ratchet that down for now. So, if you're not going to do this project, this is level of threat. So maybe we have to move to a 4, or maybe even a 3 right now.
Yeah.
And now we can transition to a conversation. And if you really want to reach 5, let's start building a roadmap to 5, right? And hey, Mr. Customer, I suggest you do that for everything in your business, because there are things that have nothing to do with technology that also carry risk, right? We'll think of security awareness training, but just think of other things. Who's got access to what systems? Who's got keys to your business at night? Who have you fired recently that you might have forgot to turn off access to something? Risk lives everywhere. And we need to really get our customers in tune with understanding, hey, what risk are you willing to take on? I may be willing to take on a certain amount of risk. Hey, look, our cash position's pretty good. Ransomwares of our size seem to be $250,000 events. I don't believe it's going to happen to us. So I'm willing to kind of self-insure myself on that problem, right? If it happens, shame on me, but I'm not going to go spend $100,000 now to maybe save $250,000 later, right? We almost become gamblers at that stage. And that's what risk is really about. What's the gamble you're willing to take?
Well, and I think that's what people are still, a lot of prospects, they're not even evaluating that. They're just starting to understand that, right?
Yeah.
So step 1 is understanding. Step 2 is, what's my risk tolerance? I mean, there's just been so many moving parts over the last 15 months that has made this come front and center more so than ever. And now and I think we talked about it in one of the last episodes. Now there's the whole conversation of insurance, insurance around cybersecurity, and that's it's just like it's starting to go down this rabbit hole, and figuring out where people stand and what they, what their risk tolerance is. That's a huge part right now. And as a salesperson, you need to know that if that's a road that you're going down.
Well, that statement that about the cybersecurity insurance or cyber liability insurance sat with me heavily since our last conversation around it. Because when you really think that our government can turn around and then declare that a terrorist act, which, whether you believe in it or don't believe in it, that's a personal choice. But the impact to now indemnification, and either these insurance companies are going to have to determine whether or not to sell the policy, they want to release that indemnification, or hide behind that indemnification so they can reduce their claims, thus really exposing us to a totally self-insured model. That is scary as hell to me.
Yeah,
that is scary as hell to me. And that really comes into the conversation and narrative that salespeople can be having as well during this process. I mean, I guess there's some fear, uncertainty, and doubt there, but it really comes back to your tolerance of risk. Hey, talk to your insurance company about this, because this could become a real problem to you. And if that is a real problem, you got to look at your risk register now and take that 5 down to a 3 because you just got exposed. Should this go forward? Now, that said, I'm sure there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to ensure everybody's interests are covered in this. But, sometimes, like anything, sometimes government doesn't look at what the commercial side impact is on that until after it's done. And then it becomes a series of readjustments, right?
Well, and also, generally speaking, insurance companies are great until they have to pay out. So there's generally going to be a reason why they're not going to pay out. So that's where it gets weird.
There's a decline button now in BCIO Toolbox. It's strictly so you can categorize those declines. So you, as an MSP, you can prove when you gave that person the recommendation, because it's not even the customer, it's the insurance company. That cyber hit comes, the insurance company is going to say, we have to pay this claim. Who else is in the food chain that we can at least share the responsibility with, if not push the responsibility? And that's all that is. And then pray to God that the insurance company doesn't insure them as well.
Yeah. So Brian, you were talking about risk tolerance there, and you're doing the 1 through 5. I mean, do you recommend kind of like fleshing that out a little bit with your clients?
I think it's a huge opportunity to have a business focused discussion with your clients, right? We're always looking at how to put those value touch points with our clients and show that we go beyond fixing problems, right? And you guys have heard me talk 100 times about the curse of the great MSP. It probably ranks up there with the Dream 250, right? The more we automate, the more we do remotely, the less we're on site, and the less things break. And when that happens, that's when our value gets called into question, right? So if you want to go hold some value-driven conversations that your customer's actually going to engage on, say to them, hey, Mr. Customer, before I even come in here and tell you what you need to do with security, I got a big missing piece in this process. What do you how do you even interpret risk for your business? What are you willing to take on? What are you not willing to take on? For a lot of you MSPs, think back to when HIPAA first came out. We thought we were going to be selling firewalls going out of style to, every small practitioner in the world. What we found out very quickly was if you were a practitioner of a certain age, maybe 5 years within selling your practice and moving out, you had no interest in doing that because you were like, first fine's 25,000. I'll eat that one.
Yeah.
Second fine's when I retire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the way they really approach security there. So what they're really saying is, I don't care about the risk, right? So we need to go have those conversations with our customers, because I'm sure that risk varies from industry to industry and from client to client. So, it's a huge opportunity to go have a conversation that has nothing to do with your goals, but more to have a better understanding. I mean, yes, I guess it ties intrinsically to our goals of selling security. But, also it's going to tell us if they're not going to buy security. And quite candidly, if you're a mature MSP, you're going to want to evaluate whether or not you want to keep that customer.
Do you make them sign?
Oh, well, sign goes without saying. You've got to have some sort of report, and people will try to sign. From a perspective, I mentioned decline button in BCIO Toolbox. We're even adding electronic signature to that capability as well. That way, that report goes out, we get electronically signed with the code and timestamp that's required by law to make it a binding contract. And you almost have to. You almost have to. And if you are a mature MSP, you almost have to and say, if without you declining this, we will not continue to serve you.
So what are you making them sign there, Brian? Are you making them sign I am a risk tolerance 3, or are you making them, I'm not going to do the managed firewall?
So two things, right? I'm working with them to define their risk tolerance, and I may build that risk tolerance in wherever it works for me. Again, if you're a VCIO Toolbox customer, I'm not trying to pitch here, but you're going to put that risk tolerance right into our tool. And then when there's a decline, you're going to get that information and retain that in our tool, so you can then refer back to it and show proof of timestamp and all that for those projects. But if you're just doing it, however you're going about doing it, you're going to want to document it into anything. If you have a standard QBR report that you're doing with a customer, or a standard annual review, make a cover page that talks about things like, hey, your operational status is 97, your ticket count is X, your identified risk score is 3, and just make it part of your dashboard or your overview slide, right? So you can make sure that comes up in conversation again. Then no matter how they decline it, whether they're declining a quote or they're declining a future project as part of a business review item, you got to get that decline in writing, right? It used to be, if you decline that firewall with me, I maybe have that quote to reference, but it becomes a little subjective whether or not that quote was really positioned with the right amount of risk behind. Nobody was there in the room except the two of you. Customers have short memories, especially when it's not in their favor.
Yep.
And we're looking for a magic
that
bullet
works.
in the form of an email or a quote, right? So we need to harden how the declines go. In my system, you can write your language. I say consult a lawyer. Here's the standard language, but get it in your state or get it in your region and whatever's going to matter there. Make it boilerplate in this report. Send this report out with your declined items at the end of each business review period. Then archive off the report in our system so it's time stamped. Those are the critical steps to get it. And again, this isn't here to poke our customers in the eye. It's to work in partnership with our customers. It's to be realistic about where risk lives. But more importantly, we have to protect our asset, and our asset's our business. And if cyber liability is going to come down to the MSP level, like we're seeing, we have no choice. It's a business decision. And if you're working with a business owner on the other side who's a realist, they're going to understand you have to do that too, because you have your pot of gold at risk now at that stage. And without that documentation, you're putting it at risk.
It just all goes back to, look, at the end of the day, you got to find the right people that align with your core values, and the people who understand, who take IT seriously, take security seriously. Those are going to be the good clients that are going to help your MSP grow or your MSSP grow. That's a big part of it. It all goes back to that. It's oversimplification, but it's true.
All right, fellas. Well, we're coming up to the end of our time here for this topic, although we could just go on and on. This is a big one for the industry, both on the ownership level, on the prospect level, and on the sales level. There's just so many different ways that we could, try and help here.
Yeah, I think, this is going to be something that we're going to have to revisit here on this, this medium as well, as time goes by, whether it be quarterly, because it's going to change too, right? The threats are going to change. The tolerance is going to change. As we just alluded to, government involvement is going to change in this. What are the new regulations that are going to tie to it to get paid? So those are the things that we're going to have to understand down the road. And I think this gives us something, is going to give us something that we're going to want to engage people and get their points of view too.
Yeah.
So, hopefully everybody's takeaway is don't sell on fear, uncertainty, and doubt when it comes to security. Get your team a playbook, get them in tune with understanding what these tools are going to do to minimize risk. That should be your sales narrative. And then go find out from your customer, what are the risks? What is their level of risk tolerance? And if they say 5 and they're not acting like a 5, you owe them the understanding of why you see it differently. Because a lot of times they're just not thinking in that manner, right? They're thinking fiscally on one side, yet in the other side of their mouth, they're talking about security and data, right? And sometimes you got to help them connect the dots.
Yeah.
100%.
100%. Yeah.
All right. So Rob, you want to take us home?
Well, sure. This was a good one for anyone that's looking to, hear about this episode. This will be up on all of our LinkedIn profiles, so you can get it there, or you can get it on mspbusinessschool.com. And I tell you guys that, Brian, we don't usually agree on the sales tactics and the sales strategy.
That's not true.
But I 100% agree with you that fear, uncertainty, doubt in the cybersecurity market is not the play. It's just not.
Yeah, I agree. And Rob, I think we agree more often than not. I just enjoy when others don't agree with you.
I know. He got me good last week. He got me good. It was a good one.
All right, guys.
All right,
so until
fellas.
our next session.
All right.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care.